That pit in your stomach, right? The endless checking of your email or just staring at the clock. You're waiting for news. Big news. Could be a job offer, maybe test results. Some decision that just feels like it's going to change everything. It's a tough spot to be in.
It really is, that state of limbo.
Yeah, where you feel like you have absolutely zero control and your mind just runs wild with every possible what if, usually, let's be honest, the negative ones.
Exactly. And it's a uniquely challenging kind of stress. We're kind of wired to react to immediate threats, something right here, right now.
Fight or flight.
Fight, flight, freeze. Yeah.
Yeah.
But waiting triggers that same ancient alarm system in our bodies. Right. But here's the thing. It's triggered just by thoughts about something uncertain off in the future.
Wow.
So your body can react as if the worst has already happened, even when it's just, a possibility rattling around in your head.
That really frames the problem perfectly. So, okay, you've brought us some fascinating sources today, really digging into this whole experience, the psychology of waiting, how our bodies and minds grapple with it, and maybe most importantly, what we can actually do. What can you do when you're stuck in that waiting game?
That's absolutely the mission for this deep dive. We're pulling out the most valuable insights from all this research to help you understand why waiting feels so incredibly stressful. And then, equip you with practical, grounded ways to navigate that uncertain space.
So it's not about making time speed up. Wishful thinking, maybe.
If only. No, it's more about fundamentally changing your relationship with the experience of waiting itself.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Cool.
If we're wired for these immediate threats, why is waiting this period of inaction about a future unknown? Why is it so hard?
Well, the sources really seem to hone in on this fundamental human need we have for certainty and for control.
And waiting just takes both away.
Completely. You can't do anything in that specific moment to directly influence the outcome you're waiting for. It is, like by definition, a kind of forced inaction, at least regarding the thing you care most about right then.
And our brains just do not like that feeling of helplessness.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Our cerebral cortex, the thinking part, the part that manages our attention and perception, it starts fixating on the anticipation. It runs through all those potential negative scenarios, those what-ifs.
Obsessively, sometimes.
Right. And when it focuses on these imagined future threats, it sends a signal down to the amygdala. That's the primal alarm system we were talking about, basically saying, hey, there's danger here.
Even though the danger is just a thought.
Exactly. And that triggers the physical stress response. Your heart rate goes up, muscles get tense, breathing gets shallow. And the sources point out this really powerful feedback loop. Yeah, the anxious thoughts trigger the physical reaction, but then that physical feeling can fuel even more anxious thoughts. It's quite something we know now, that the classic fight, flight, freeze response can be set off just by thinking about something scary, not just when it's physically present.
So your mind imagines something bad and your body reacts like you're, actually being chased by a bear. That explains the physical toll, the exhaustion.
Precisely. Your body's gearing up for a threat that frankly might never even materialize.
Okay, understood. We get the why. Now, the crucial part. What strategies do the sources offer? What can you do in the moment when that anxiety spikes while you're waiting?
Right, the practical stuff. There's several really accessible, immediate techniques. Simple breathing is a cornerstone.
They're really powerful, like just deep breaths.
Controlled breathing, yeah. The sources mention specific techniques, like breathing in slowly, maybe for a count of 7, holding it just briefly, and then breathing out even more slowly, say for a count of 11. Or the 4-7-8 method is another popular one.
What's the key there? The slow exhale.
That's it. The controlled, longer exhale. It directly engages your parasympathetic nervous system, which is like the body's brake pedal. It counteracts that stress response, helps calm the heart rate, reduces those stress hormones. It's like giving control back to your physical self right then and there, pulling you out of the anxious swirl in your head.
That feels empowering, actually. Something you can control when everything else feels out of control. And you can do it anywhere.
Absolutely, anytime. Another really powerful tool is engaging your senses. Think about it. Our experience of waiting is so tied up with our perception of time passing, right? And that's sensory.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
So using calming sensory stimulation helps ground you firmly in the present moment, pulls you away from those future worries. Think about things like specific music. Research shows music can significantly lower anxiety, like for people waiting for medical procedures.
Or maybe aromatherapy, a certain scent.
Yes. Or holding a smooth stone, using a fidget toy. One source even suggested creating a little sensory bag with things you find calming that you can reach for.
Like a little toolkit.
Exactly. And seeking out calming environments helps too. Places with nature sounds, maybe getting some natural daylight, even just being around soothing colors. These sensory inputs can literally help reset your nervous system.
So putting on a specific calming playlist or just stepping outside for 5 minutes and really listening to the birds, feeling the breeze. The sources also mention physical movement, right? Even something quick.
Oh, definitely. Movement is fantastic for de-stressing. It helps release that physical tension that builds up, stress headaches, tight shoulders, clenched jaw that's often the mental pressure manifesting physically.
So even a quick walk around the block or some gentle stretching at your desk.
Yes, and consciously relaxing those specific muscle groups, shoulders, jaw, neck, that's another immediate physical tactic that's mentioned.
And engaging the senses, being present, relaxing, that naturally leads us towards mindfulness, doesn't it?
It really does. Mindfulness, as the sources describe it, is about being intensely aware of this present moment. Your sensations, thoughts, feelings, but, and this is key, without judgment, without interpretation.
Just noticing.
Just noticing,
Oh,
observing them, acknowledging them, but not getting swept away or reacting to them. It helps create a little bit of distance from those anxious thought loops. Even something as simple as focusing completely on the smell and taste of your coffee, or sitting for just 60 seconds and noticing your breath without trying to change it. That can make a real difference. The core idea is really that phrase, be here now. Disengaging from the endless future, worrying, the problem solving, the negative self-talk that just drains you during waiting.
so instead of trying to fight off the what ifs or pretend they aren't there, you just sort of notice them like clouds passing by.
That's a great way to put it. It's a practice of gentle observation. It helps you gain perspective and, crucially, disengage from that downward spiral.
Okay, so those are some great tools for managing the immediate anxiety spikes. But moving beyond just coping in the moment, the sources also talk a lot about shifting your fundamental mindset about the whole waiting period itself.
Yes, and this is where things get really interesting, I think. It's not just about gritting your teeth and enduring the wait. It's about actively changing your relationship with the experience of anxiety and uncertainty.
Not trying to eliminate it, but work with it.
Exactly. One source put it beautifully, accepting that anxiety is probably going to be part of the process allows you to work with it, rather than constantly fighting against it.
And that starts with what? Awareness, self-compassion.
Absolutely. First, just noticing your feelings without beating yourself up for having them. Treating yourself with the same kindness, the same understanding and patience you'd offer a good friend who was going through the exact same thing. The beliefs we often layer on top of the anxiety, like, I shouldn't feel this way, or this means I'm weak, those judgments can actually be more painful than the anxiety itself.
That's a really important point. And a huge part of that mindset shift the sources emphasize is getting crystal clear on what you can control versus what you absolutely cannot.
This is foundational. Really, it's key for managing stress during any kind of uncertainty. Directing your limited energy towards the aspects of your life that are within your control is incredibly empowering.
Like what, specifically?
Well, it could mean dedicating time to a creative hobby you enjoy, maybe volunteering for a cause you care about, reconnecting with friends, getting some exercise, or even just sticking to your normal daily routines like making your bed, eating regular meals. These are concrete behaviors. They align with your values. They provide a sense of agency, and that directly counteracts that feeling of helplessness that comes with waiting.
So instead of hitting refresh on your email for the 100th time, which you can't control, you maybe channel that nervous energy into planning a weekend trip or working on that side project you've been meaning to start, something productive or enjoyable.
Precisely. The sources also highlight the power of what's called positive psychology practices. Simple things, but really effective, like starting a gratitude list.
Gratitude. How does that help with waiting stress?
Well, gratitude is specifically mentioned as one of the most protective positive emotions against depressive symptoms. So, consciously listing things you're thankful for. Or another one is listing 3 good things that happened each day, however small, and importantly, reflecting on your role in making those good things happen.
So recognizing your own agency even in small positive moments.
Exactly. Even giving yourself small self-rewards for actually doing these practices can help reinforce them.
Listing what you're grateful for, what went right, it feels like that actively counters the brain's natural negativity bias, especially when you're anxious and waiting.
It absolutely does. The sources also mention something called downward comparisons. Now, this isn't about feeling superior or diminishing others' struggles. It's about consciously reminding yourself of what you do have, shifting perspective from "I wish I had X" to "I'm really glad I have Y." For instance, acknowledging you have secure housing when you think about those who are facing homelessness.
Shifting focus to what's stable.
Yes. And connecting to something larger than yourself, showing compassion for others, helping out in your community that's also highlighted as protective. It can imbue the waiting time with a different kind of meaning, pulling you outside your own immediate worry.
That makes a lot of sense. It gets you out of your own head. Now, the sources also directly tackle those negative thoughts we mentioned earlier, the automatic what-ifs.
Yes, this is the practice often called accurate thinking. It's about taking a step back, trying to be objective, separating the verifiable facts from, irrelevant information or just your emotional conclusions, and actively questioning your automatic assumptions.
Because our minds tend to jump to conclusions.
Very much so. We're prone to what psychologists sometimes call automatic negative thoughts, or ANETs. Things like filtering out any positive information, personalizing things that aren't actually about us, catastrophizing, assuming the absolute worst outcome, or seeing things in very black and white terms.
Can you give an example?
Sure, a relatable one from the sources. Imagine you wave to a colleague across the street, maybe even call out their name, and they just walk past, don't acknowledge you. The ANT, the automatic negative thought, might be, "She doesn't like me," or "I must have done something wrong."
Right, instant personalization.
Exactly. Accurate thinking challenges that. It asks, are there other possible interpretations based on facts? Maybe they genuinely didn't see or hear you. Maybe they were totally preoccupied with their own thoughts. Maybe they're having a really difficult day themselves, and it has absolutely nothing to do with you.
The classic overthinking trap. So the skill is to consciously look for those alternative, more balanced conclusions. Become kind of an observer of your own thinking patterns.
Precisely. You notice the thought. You acknowledge it. Okay, there's that thought again. And then you actively explore other possibilities based on evidence, consciously separating the thought from the emotional charge. And this ties directly into what's called realistic optimism.
Realistic optimism. So not just blind positivity.
Definitely not. It's about maintaining a positive outlook, yes, but one that is firmly grounded in reality. It's not about forcing yourself to be cheerful or pretending things are fine if they're genuinely difficult. It's more about believing in your own skills, your own capacity to cope with whatever the outcome might be. Drawing on a realistic assessment of your strengths, your past experiences of handling tough times.
So it's confidence in your ability to handle adversity, whatever comes, rather than a guarantee that the outcome itself will be good. That feels like a really crucial distinction.
It absolutely is. That's resilience in action right there.
Okay, so shifting gears slightly. When we're stressed and waiting, instinctively, we often reach out to people, right? Friends, family. But the sources point out something really interesting, maybe a bit counterintuitive. Social support during these waiting periods can actually be, well, tricky.
It really can be. Very tricky sometimes. While we naturally seek connection and support, what someone intends as helpful can sometimes land completely wrong. It might feel unhelpful or even actively increase your stress.
Why is that?
Well, waiting for a specific outcome is unique because, as we said, there's often nothing the supporter or even the person waiting can do to change the result right then. So typical advice or action-oriented support, "Have you tried this? Why don't you do that?" becomes much less relevant and can sometimes just feel irritating.
Right, because there's nothing to do. So what kind of support actually does help when you're stuck in that state of uncertain waiting?
The sources looked at people's real experiences waiting for job interview results, medical tests, university applications, things like that. And helpful support often involved simple, active engagement, like just being willing to sit and talk, letting the person vent without jumping in to fix it, showing genuine responsiveness and care, maybe checking in thoughtfully, not constantly, and really demonstrating that you understand how important this situation is to them. Sometimes just physical presence was valued, simply being near someone who helps you feel calmer or maybe more optimistic in a grounded way.
I remember reading an example like the boyfriend who just let the person waiting guide the conversation, so they felt in control of sharing their feelings when they wanted to.
Yes, that's a perfect example. Or feeling deeply understood by a spouse because they were physically there during a stressful test or when the news finally arrived. Or having that one friend you really trust who knows your history and can offer perspective that's grounded in actually knowing you.
Makes sense. What else?
Helpful support also sometimes involves addressing the potential negatives, but in a realistic way. This was a surprising finding for some researchers, actually. Helping someone gently plan for an undesirable outcome sometimes made them feel more prepared and, paradoxically, less anxious.
So talking through the what if it doesn't work out scenario.
Exactly. And validating their concerns, saying things like, it's completely okay and understandable to feel anxious right now, or even if this doesn't work out, it doesn't mean you're not qualified or capable. That made their worries feel acceptable, less overwhelming. This kind of realistic perspective was often appreciated far more than just empty cheerleading.
Interesting.
And of course, practical support was key too. Tangible help, like bringing over meals, helping with childcare, maybe helping review application materials if that's relevant, or getting useful, unbiased information from someone truly knowledgeable, like an advisor guiding a job search process.
So it sounds like acknowledging the difficulty, validating the feelings, and helping someone feel prepared even for a bad outcome can be more comforting than just saying, don't worry, it'll all be fine.
Precisely. It respects their reality and their intelligence. Now, on the flip side, the unhelpful stuff. This is where intention and interpretation often really clash, as the sources strongly emphasize.
Okay, let's hear it.
Unhelpful support often included things like intrusive concern, unsolicited or totally irrelevant advice from someone who doesn't really understand the specifics of your situation, like the example of a well-meaning relative giving generic job advice that's useless for a highly specialized field.
Or maybe excessive worry from the supporter, constantly asking for updates.
Yes. That constant checking in that just amplifies the pressure. Like someone in one study said, being constantly asked if I've heard back, trust me, I would tell you if I did. It puts the burden back on the person waiting.
I can absolutely see that. It forces you to manage their anxiety or their expectations on top of your own. Like that person who had to keep explaining the complexities of the academic job market to their spouse who was maybe too confident on their behalf.
That example captures it perfectly. And then there's unwanted positivity.
The forced cheerfulness.
Yeah, unwarranted optimism like, oh, everything will definitely be fine, when there's a real chance it might not be. That can feel dishonest, it can invalidate the person's real worries, or just show a fundamental lack of understanding of the stakes. Sometimes even bringing up other people's successes, well, so-and-so got that job, could feel isolating or just ramp up social comparison pressure.
And it adds another layer of pressure, right? Feeling like you might disappoint the person who's being so relentlessly positive at you.
Exactly. It can feel like you have to perform optimism for them. Other unhelpful behaviors mentioned were things like outright negativity or judgment, obviously, or impeding coping efforts like a family member blocking access to necessary information or showing impatience like, oh, can this just be over already?
Yeah.
And also unhelpful downplaying dismissing real worries with a casual, oh, just calm down, or showing ignorance or complete indifference to how much it matters to the person.
So the really critical takeaway here from the sources about social support seems to be this. It's far less about the supporter's intention, which is usually good, and almost entirely about how the person waiting perceives the support.
Absolutely. That's the bottom line. Perceived responsiveness, feeling truly seen, genuinely understood, valued and cared for, that's the determining factor in whether support actually lands as helpful. It's fascinating. In some specific situations discussed, even a supporter intentionally ignoring the issue was perceived as helpful by the person waiting, if they felt that gave them needed space or was just what they needed right then. It really requires empathy and flexibility from the person offering support.
That's a huge insight. Okay, so all these different strategies we've talked about, the things you can do in the moment to calm down, the bigger mindset shifts, understanding how to navigate social support, they feel like they're building towards something larger, more than just getting through one difficult waiting period.
They absolutely are. They're essentially building blocks for resilience. And resilience, as the sources frame it, isn't some kind of innate, fixed trait that you either have or you don't. It's really the learned ability to cope effectively when you're under pressure, dealing with uncertainty, facing adversity. It's based on developing specific behaviors, specific strategies, and different perspectives over time.
So you can build it?
Definitely. Building these skills helps protect you from the negative impacts of stress in the long run, and it improves your overall sense of well-being.
And resilience isn't about being like Teflon coated or pretending stress doesn't affect you, right?
Oh, far from it. Not at all. Resilience actually involves acknowledging the stress, knowing your own limits, understanding what you can and cannot control, like we discussed, and critically, knowing when and how to seek help effectively. Building those healthy, genuinely supportive networks we just talked about. That is a profoundly resilient behavior.
So asking for the right kind of help is a strength. What else forms that foundation for long-term resilience, according to the sources?
Well, looking after your basic physical health is absolutely foundational. Things like trying to eat reasonably well, prioritizing sleep, getting regular exercise. These aren't just optional nice-to-haves when things get tough. They directly support your body's ability to handle the physiological side of stress. They help maintain emotional balance and even foster optimism. The sources really highlight them as essential protective factors.
The mind-body connection.
Totally. And then there are the mental health practices actively cultivating meaningful connections with others, staying physically active, being open to trying new things, finding ways to help others or contribute. These activities build competence, they build confidence, and they contribute to a more positive outlook, helping you sort of flourish even when things are difficult.
It sounds like actively nurturing yourself, building your capacity across both body and mind, especially during stressful times.
That's a great way to put it. And managing long-term pressure also includes developing practical skills. Things like establishing healthier boundaries between, say, work and life, knowing when to say no to things, practicing assertive communication so you can express your needs respectfully but clearly, and managing your time effectively through planning and prioritizing. These skills help you set limits and cope better with demands and unpredictability.
Like maybe even rehearsing how you might phrase something to set a boundary, or intentionally scheduling in time for something enjoyable during a really stressful patch.
Precisely. Practical, proactive steps. Ultimately, developing resilience is this ongoing process. It involves cultivating self-awareness, really recognizing your own early signs of stress or feeling overwhelmed. It involves learning and practicing a whole range of coping strategies, like the ones we've discussed, intentionally building those strong, truly supportive networks, and fostering that positive, but importantly, realistic outlook.
So it boils down to managing thoughts and feelings, tolerating uncertainty.
Yes, increasing your tolerance for uncertainty, practicing that accurate thinking, being empathetic towards yourself as well as others, having confidence in your ability to face challenges, and maybe even having a willingness to embrace the learning and growth that can sometimes come from going through difficult experiences.
Okay, wow. So we've taken a real deep dive today into the stress of waiting for important news. We started by looking at why it feels so incredibly hard, that fundamental lack of control, how our brain's ancient alarm system gets hijacked by just thoughts about potential future threats. But then we uncovered this wealth of practical strategies from the sources, things you can do right in the moment, like controlled breathing, engaging your senses, and then the bigger picture stuff, shifting your mindset, focusing on what you can control, practicing accurate thinking, cultivating that realistic optimism.
And navigating the complexities of social support, understanding what actually helps versus what might hinder.
Right, that crucial difference between intention and perception. And finally, we connected all of this to the larger project of actively building long-term resilience through self-care, healthy habits, strong connections, practical skills.
I think the key lesson, the thread woven through all these different sources, is really this. While the specific outcome you're waiting for is often outside your control, your experience of the waiting, and your capacity to navigate it effectively, that is very much within your power.
That feels hopeful.
It is. By consciously applying these strategies, managing our reactions, challenging those unhelpful thoughts, seeking out genuinely supportive connections, investing in our overall well-being, we really can transform a period that might otherwise feel like just anxious, helpless inaction into something much more manageable. Maybe even potentially a time that strengthens our capacity for whatever challenges come next.
That really is a powerful reframe. Waiting isn't just this empty, agonizing space you have to passively endure. It's actually an active period where you can choose strategies to build your inner strength and cope more effectively.
Which, thinking about it, raises an interesting question. If waiting is so often defined by this necessary inaction regarding the outcome itself, how can we find productive, meaningful ways to create a sense of agency, purpose, and maybe even forward movement within the waiting period itself, regardless of what the future eventually holds?
Something to think about.
Something to explore.